The Game Schooler Podcast is a weekly audio show that educates new and experienced gamers about the awesomeness of tabletop gaming. In this week's episode, we'll cover Captain Flip, our game of the week, discuss scheduling a game night in the School of Gaming, and wrap it up by revealing our High Five co-host predictions for GenCon. Welcome to the Game Schooler Podcast. I'm your host, Doug Kotecki, along with my co-host, Dr. Michael McCabe. How's it going, Michael?
What's going on, Doug? There's so much to talk about, man.
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
I mean, we've got GenCon coming up. I've got personal revelations to reveal, some follow-up.
Hopefully they're board game related.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So what's do you have any follow-up? Because I've got some.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know how related our follow-up will be. A lot of it has to do with what's going on over on our Discord. Is that all right if I just jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump in there. I got to say, the reaction to our most recent high fives has just been awesome. The last segment of this show is our high five where we go over something that's thematically related, and our Discord, I do think it's the only place, where you have homeschoolers, high school educators, librarians, all connecting in a very civil. It's just awesome, man. I mean, you have a discussion of people that typically aren't communicating on the same platforms together, and I love that. I just absolutely love what's happening over there. I know I don't always comment or give a thumbs up or a like, but I'm reading everything that's happening over there. So I wanted to share that.
I had that exact same thing on my list of that list being well received from last week. And I think people, it's such a refreshing thing in the hobby that people enjoyed our candor without the snark, and that you can say what you don't like about a game without trashing the game or the people that also like that game, which is sad that that's a novel concept in the hobby that we're in, that those things are not mutually exclusive, and so I think people enjoyed that, and that there could be that conversation in the Discord about, oh, I like that game, or I don't like that game, or I'm in your camp, or I felt that way too, and that type of stuff with nobody. I can't believe you don't like that game. You're a monster, and you shouldn't even be in the hobby. How can you call yourself a gamer?
Yeah, and 180 episodes in, I think we're at a spot where we could say that is a great game for a lot of people. Clearly, that's a great game for a lot of people. But for me, it just didn't work. And that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a realization this week that I wanted to talk about. I'm not sure if this is awesome that I've made the realization or more of a follow-up. And it's because my oldest daughter and I like to play kind of puzzly detective type style games.
Sure.
And we've played a couple recently that haven't worked for us, and for me particularly. And I think I determined what it is. And so when I'm talking about the couple of games that didn't work, I'm talking about games like Sherlock Files. We played Suspects, which, although in Suspects I really do like the format of the game. I think it was really cool. But another game that would fall into this category is the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. And these are all games where you need to kind of solve the case.
Yeah.
And I found that as we're playing it, we're kind of having a good time. But the letdown at the end, if you got something wrong, feels like you lost, and there's no way to... It's not like you can go back and do the case again. And sometimes you lose because you pulled on a thread that was the wrong thread.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the game, we just kept feeling of a couple of these games, we felt empty, like I wish we had done better, and we didn't solve the case, or we got part of it right, but the motive was wrong, or something along those lines. And it just kind of left me unsatisfied, which then reaffirmed how much her and I like the unlocked games.
Yeah.
And even though we're not on a situation where there are times where we go over the timer, there are times like I don't care what the star rating is at the end of the game. I don't feel guilty every once in a while when we ask for a hint. But there are a bunch of aha moments that make me feel like a Sherlock Holmes of like, oh, that's how this goes together. And you feel like a hero, and you've accomplished the goal at the end, and I don't care about the score anyway. And so we played a couple of those kind of detective-style games, and then after striking out with several of them, to then play a couple of unlocked games and be like, yeah, this is a much more rewarding experience for us.
So did you load up and unlocked recently after having that?
Yes.
Okay. What'd you play? Which one? And that was for our listeners, that was a game of the week back in episode 89. I know Doug and I just dove right in as if you've been with us all along the journey here, but we covered that one a few years ago in great detail. Doug is a connoisseur of Unlocked. If anyone's following us on X, you'll see a recent post that we put up from Doug's collection. And now I want to send it back to you.
So we did, I forget which set it's from, but we played one that was a boogeyman where you're in a kid's bedroom and you're trying to get rid of all of the monsters under the bed type of thing. And so we did that one, and then we did Shahrazad's Tale, which was really cool. And just the amount of innovation and different things, it's like as you go along, you learn some stuff of what to kind of look for, but I'm always amazed what they're doing with the components with a deck of 60 cards in an app. And I have not found any game that gives me that same type of feeling. And just after, I love the concept of those other style of detective games and trying to be a sleuth. And I love watching shows like CSI or something, and you're trying to guess along the way. But there's something that's been really unsatisfying for me of missing a couple clues, or in some cases where the game is making a jump that I don't even know how you could get there. Like,
well,
I don't
think
even
without
know.
the app, that it's just such a difficult thing to pull off, right?
Yeah.
When you have the app, it's able to collect a lot of information, sometimes in the background, sometimes right up front, based on what you're clicking on the screen. And yeah, you get to the end of 45 minutes or an hour and a half together, and it's like, oh, I didn't pick up on that teapot back in the first scene, and that was a clue that unraveled everything, so we lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of cool because I know that I can avoid those type of games. I still love a deduction game that's like a clue or something like that where there's set information and you're trying to unlock it, but those kind of narrative storytelling ones where I'm going to find the solution, I think I'm going to kind of avoid. The last one I want to try with her is probably Chronicles of Crime, because
I was just going to say I've had a hankering for that, man. I'd really love to play that one again.
That does a little bit more of combining the two of them and less. I think the experience is more interactive, so it becomes a little bit better of enjoying the ride as opposed to feeling the letdown if you're wrong. So I think sometimes those games kind of get too clever for themselves to try and make it super hard, where I kind of really want just the basic. Like, of course, he was jealous for this, and that's why he stole the rubies. Like, I don't need to pick on the DNA of the hair of matching those things together and to that level. So kind of a revelation for me, and one I'm happy to make, because it again helps you either whittle your collection down and or know what to be on the lookout or what we're actually going to enjoy.
Well, and now you can continue to try to be a completionist in all things Unlocked, right?
Yeah, that's already done.
Is it done? Do you have them all?
I think so. I think
there
might be.
Really good to hear. You can't make this stuff up. I was at a board game cafe this past weekend, and they had a good little stack of Unlocked. And I just said to Josie, boy, I'd love to get Doug one for a gift, but I think he has them all.
Yeah, they're the only problem is that they come out in French first, and it takes a little while for them to come over to the U.S. So sometimes there's stuff that's on Board Game Geek that has not been released U.S. wise yet. But I think I'm caught up. But I might be
good.
Might be one off, but pretty close.
Well, I don't want to intrude on your father-daughter time, but if you're looking for someone, you need a third player for Chronicles of Crime.
All right.
I'm your guy. I've been
Sounds
wanting
good.
to
We'll book
play
it for
that
next
one
game
again.
night.
Sounds good. I like it. No, that's great. Yeah, I've got some things to follow up on. I've got some things that are awesome. I've got kind of a crowdfunding update. We haven't done one of those in a while. I think maybe we should lean into that a little bit if that's okay.
All right. I'm interested to see where this is going.
And to new listeners, just a quick recap of who we are. I'm Michael McCabe. Was a classroom teacher, was a principal. Now I'm just a lowly bureaucrat by day and podcast gamer enthusiast by night. Joined by Doug. You want to say hello, who you are, do a quick recap?
Yes, I am a lover of board games, father of 3, and have been on this journey of combining skills and tabletop gaming for younger folks and families to play together.
Man, our GenCon pitch. We're getting ready. Yeah, so
my name is Doug.
Doug will know. Doug has his own confessions to make as a backer of crowdfunding. I, on the other hand, I went on about a 3-month journey to either rule in or rule out Dead Reckoning. Dead Reckoning is a 4X. I'm not going to get into what all the X's stand for, but it's a pirate journey, and I talked about it a few episodes back because I soloed it. Campaign, it's awesome. They're coming out with their 4th, and I hope to be final saga. And they're also making a very gigantic box. And here's where I don't want to get into the inside jokes or how the sausage is made, but the person who's designing that box happens to be a close personal friend of ours, happens to be in our game group, and I'm a little upset with because the information was embargoed, so he couldn't tell me this stuff in the event that I might share it with the world on our podcast. Well, today, it was posted on Kickstarter. It's a wooden box, Doug, that fits inside a calyx for $189. So now I'm caught. It's like part of me feels like, well, I need to back it to support Dan, our friend who designed it. And the other part of me is like, no, I've given Alderac enough of my money. I'm just going to do the 45 and call it a set.
Just give Dan $100.
I just wanted to rant a little bit. Some of those details would have been nice to know. Did you know that it was going to be a wooden box?
I feel like yes, but I could be mistaken. That didn't surprise me. Let's put it that way.
Me. A wooden box that fits in a calyx that also has a handle on it so you can carry it with you.
So you're gonna buy the expansion and give Dan $100 and call it a day. You're coming out ahead. Supporting your friend.
I don't know, man. I've got 11 days to make a decision. I think I know what I'll end up doing, and some of it's going to depend on how GenCon goes. But it's like, my goodness, the business just wins in that crowdfunding area. You know what I mean?
Like I'm teetering on whether I want the wood box or if I should only spend $45. Countdown's on, all in, $450 pledge.
Now, that's me. Anything that you want to confess on the air here or no?
The listeners of our show will know that I like Marvel United.
You do?
And by the time this episode airs, the campaign for DC Superheroes United will have ended. I may be all in.
Maybe all in. Wait, already? Hold on.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that you are already all in?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Charge my card, ship it off. I need to paint those bad boys.
Yeah. When will that arrive at your house?
2028. I think next year.
And does it come in on a pallet, or how does that one arrive?
It will be. I'm building a United room, a CMON United room on my house just to fit everything. It's getting pretty obnoxious. I still have the latest Marvel United pledge that hasn't arrived yet. and I'm close to getting the entire second set completely painted. So just in time to add another 150 minifigures for me to paint. But
Doug's going to be backing local traveling softball teams just so that he can support his Seamon United room. Like, what's his team? 12U, 13U, and 14U?
Yeah, it's we've all got our vices.
No,
usually I'm not
a hobby.
That's actually the only thing that I have ever all in backed is that series. I don't think there's another one that I've ever done that with.
Well, I've done 2 with Dead Reckoning, not yet.
Yeah,
and Foundations of Rome, and those 2 basically equal that entire Marvel set.
Yeah.
So, crowdfunding.
All right. Well, what else is awesome besides
what else is awesome
spending truckloads of money?
Yeah. No. Thank you. We've had 2 games that have just taken over our house, and I'm not going to say a whole lot about it other than it has been fun to review these 2 games for this podcast and also see my family go, ooh, and yeah, we'd really like to play that. I want to be there for the rules teach. When do you hear one of my kids say, I want to be there for the rules teach?
I've never said that.
Not for one of my rules teach, at least.
Or anybody.
And that is Cities from DeVere and Phil Walker Harding and Steve Finn. And my 8-year-old is really, taken to that and requesting to play it, which is kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And then Let's Go to Japan is a game that I know we'll be talking more about in the next few weeks. That's from Alderock, who we mentioned earlier. Nothing but glowing praise for AEG. And Josh Wood is the designer of that. And you and I happened to play another Josh Wood game recently called Cat Lady, which I also played in a board game cafe over the weekend. Awesome little drafting set collection game, which was surprisingly fun.
Yeah. So, well, yes, we will probably be talking about all 3 of those in the near future.
So all that to say, we've got some great games of the week coming up. And kind of a segue into our next segment. We like to play our games of the week in person multiple times. So that's where trying them out with different groups and different settings, and they seem to be a hit.
As far as for what's awesome in gaming for me, I kind of bundled it in refreshing the idea of just overall family gaming, getting time to play games with your family. I got a chance to play some new ones from the op this week, Blank Slate Challenge, which is kind of a team-based version of their game Blank Slate, and another game called Flip 7, which is a push-your-luck game that you are trying to collect points by flipping over cards, and the cards are numbered 1 to 12, and there is one number 1 card in the deck and 12 cards in the deck, 11 cards. And so obviously if you get a 12, you have a better chance of flipping over another 12. And if you do that, you bust. So you are trying to get as many cards as possible without busting, because then you get no points for the round. And if you stop without busting, you score the point values of each of the cards. And so it was nice. My judgment on the game is reserved at this point. I don't have enough data points to do it. We had tears from pushing your luck. We had high highs from pushing your luck and it working out great with younger kids. So there was definitely high emotion at the table, but the good takeaway that I had from it was the experience of, this is really nice, just being able to play some simple games, get them out to the table, and be playing with the family. And
that's awesome.
We touched base on talking about Life Junior last week, which I think a lot of people got a chuckle out of, but just sometimes the game isn't as important as the people that are around the table and spending that time together. So just sitting there and appreciating that was awesome for me this week.
That's great. And what was the Blank Slate game called?
Blank Slate Challenge, I believe it's called.
And did Mario Lopez come into your house and facilitate that?
He did, yeah. He's packed away in the box.
Okay.
And so I had to put a couple batteries in him, but then he popped out and started,
all right,
facilitating the game.
Good. Who does a better rules teach, you or Mario Lopez?
Probably me.
Yeah, keeping it real, Doug.
Yeah. Don't tread on me, AC Slater. What else you got going on? Anything else you need to talk about?
I think I'm good with the opening segment. I mean, there's a lot of different places could go, but I think this is is solid. I'm really excited to dive into our game of the week here. I know you always do a mention at the end of this segment to send people to Discord. The other place where people can find us is over on X and YouTube. We're trying to get more content out there, and we know this, our subscribers and our followers, they're active, and we really appreciate that. I mean, over on our Discord, we had some people that as soon as the episode dropped last week with Champions, we're talking about going out and getting it, playing it, and showing different contests of it. So I thought that was cool, and I appreciate all the people that are out there encouraging us to go cover GenCon and do those things as well. All
right, so I want to cap off this segment with every week I kind of do another section in my Calyx shelf, and this week I put a blurred picture up on Discord, so go there, pause this immediately, go and see if you can guess what the games are, and then come back. This is
Hold on, you got to give wait time.
Well, I told him to pause it.
Yeah, but then you would kind of just wrap it right into it, man.
Yeah,
you
but
know
I'm
what I mean?
Like 10 minutes of dead air while they go hunt.
Not 10 minutes, but a good 8 seconds of wait time.
So this is a really interesting shelf of a shelf of games that I want to go back and play again, and it's been a long time since I've played them, but I think that they're pretty cool, solid games. The first one on the shelf is Shakespeare, which is a Euro-style game in which you are hiring actors and stage crew and things like that. You're outfitting the actors with costumes, so you have to get costumers and set people to build your sets, and it's all
customers or costumers?
Costumers.
Got it.
And it's a pretty tight scoring game. Points are hard to come by, but the process of doing it is really cool. You are basically bidding with your action points of how many actions you want to take that round. And so the less actions get to go first. So you have a better chance if you're only doing a couple things, but obviously you don't get to do as many actions. So that initial bid every round, and then I can't specifically remember, but there is something about you can only pick up certain ones back into your hand each round. So some require a little bit of time. And so that's a pretty cool game. As I was looking it over, I was curious about a couple of these games because they're all from that kind of probably 2015 to 16 range, that I'm curious how the colors would work for you if we did play them.
Shakespeare's been on my want-to-play list for a while.
So the next game is Witness, which Witness is actually having kind of a little bit of a reprint coming out. There's 3 versions of it that are coming out from Pegasus Spiel that are smaller kind of campaign styles with only 8 cases in it, but the original had like 64, and the difficulties were normal, super hard, you may not survive, and don't even bother. But there's like 64 cases in it. It's made specifically for 4 players, and you pick a case, you open up your book, and you have some information that you then will be whispering to other players in a certain order, and you are then trying to write down and remember what people are telling you. So it's kind of solving a case over a game of telephone, which is really unique, that during COVID times was probably a disaster and not played by anybody.
But right now it's been very difficult to find, and it's over $100 at Noble Knight for a long time.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
So there are some new versions that are coming out, and those are like 8 cases, but they kind of all string together to make more of a campaign. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for them. The next game is one that completely, I've rarely hear about it, but I had a really good time when I got this and played it, and we played it several times, and it's Steam Time. This is from Thames and Cosmos, but it is by Rudiger Dorn. And it is a worker placement that you're putting out kind of an airship, but you can only go forward in the timeline. So there's like 5 or 6 different levels of actions. And if I put one on the 3rd level, I can't put any more of my airships on level 1 or 2. I've already passed those. So you can only go up and forward in time to take those actions. And it just has kind of a lot of cool... It seems to be one of the first games, or one that I can recall, of a Euro-style game that started to have more of the bright and modern art and stuff that you would maybe associate closer to games that you see now on the shelves. So
Nice.
kind of that bridge from going from, we're having tans and grays in all of our game to, hey, we're going to have a little bit more color. We might throw a blue and an orange in there every once in a while. And so that's what kind of stands out from that game. But there's a lot of cool things going on in it. And my last one is Legends of Andor, which is from Michael Menzel, is a cooperative campaign style. Not really a campaign style, but there are multiple scenarios in it. But what's really unique about this one is it's a fantasy game where you're trying to, in one scenario, it's kind of like protecting the castle. And again, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios and stories in it. But the unique thing is it's not necessarily based on combat. There are times where you want to sneak around people instead of engaging with them, which is kind of a novelty when it comes to maybe an American-style cooperative game where the goal is to just beat up as many people as you can and destroy all the zombies so they don't overrun you. This one is it worth it to attack this guy, or should I run around him and pick something else up? So I kind of like that, but it's been a while since I played it, and one I'd love to get back to the table.
Interesting.
Any questions, Michael?
Yeah, I've been doing real-time research here, and it appears that Witness is going to be available at GenCon.
Yes. Yeah.
All three versions. So are you going to scoop up one or three, or are you going to try to do the song and dance and try to get a review copy? What are you going to do? I'll be interested to see what you do for that.
I think
I'll follow your lead, Doug.
Okay. I think I want to look and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Because I don't necessarily, and I don't know, it's really hard to get 4 people to the table.
It's
just one,
even a family of 5, it's really hard to get 4 people to the table, right?
Yeah, so it's one that I don't know why I would need the newer version.
Yeah.
Unless I felt like, okay, this is way more approachable, that my family could get through the 8 campaigns and they could handle it. But if it's the same amount of difficulty and gets really hard, then that's not going to work for me. I might as well just keep what I have.
Interesting. Good stuff, Doug. What was the third game?
Steam Time.
There it is. Okay.
Yeah, Shakespeare, Witness, Steam Time, and Legends of Andor. So check those out. And with that out of the way, we've got, Michael reminded you to go to Discord, go to X, go to YouTube. We've got new overview videos coming out. I'm working on some other stuff. We had a short that went up the other day about Point Salad and the skills that you can learn playing that game. I believe it was Point Salad.
It was Point Salad.
Okay. I've been editing a lot of things, so they're kind of blurring together. But I'm working on some more stuff. So continue to check that out and subscribe there if you haven't. If you have any questions or comments, reach out to us, email at gameschooler.com. We'd love to hear from you. With that out of the way, let's move on to the game of the week.
The game of the week. The game of the week is an in-depth look at a family-friendly game we think you should try if you get the chance. This week's game is Captain Flip, published by Playpunk. Doug, give us the stats.
All right. I just need to check one thing here to make sure my notes are accurate, because I almost can't believe it.
Remo Kanzadori and Paolo Mori?
That I do have that.
Okay. 2024?
Yes. Okay. There we go.
Sorry, Doug. I wasn't trying to be that guy. Just trying to throw an assist.
Nope. I had an incorrect part in there, and I could see that it was incorrect, and I wanted to correct that. All right. So published in 2024 by Playpunk. The art is by the designer is Remo Kanzadori and Paolo Mori, and the art is by Jonathan Acomte. 2 to 5 players, 20 minutes. 8+ on the box. Board Game Geek says 6+. I'm going to lead towards the 7 to 8+ is that range.
That's where I put it too.
Just to kind of understand that. And it was a It's going to be a family game for us, and it was a 2024 Spiel des Jahres nominee.
Congratulations.
Captain Flip is a game of obvious simplicity, explained in less time than a cannonball shot. On your turn, draw a tile from the bag. If you like it, keep it. If you don't, flip it. Then place it on your board to form your crew. So each player board consists of a series of columns, and each column must be filled from the bottom up. And when you complete a column, you're usually going to receive a bonus of some sort. And the game is going to end when one player has completed 4 of the 5 columns. The player that has accumulated the most coins is going to win. However, each crew tile has a bonus. So there are tiles that have in-game immediate effects, and then some tiles that have end-game effects. So the game is so simple. I'm going to go through the 9 character tiles right now. The first one is a cartographer. If you place a cartographer on your ship, you're going to take the treasure map. As long as you have the treasure map in front of you, you're going to get 1 coin at the end of your turn every round.
Which is awesome.
So then if Michael were to place a cartographer in his ship, he will then steal the treasure map from me. The navigator is going to give you 2 points for every cartographer on your board. So if this is the first tile that you pull out of the bag, it's kind of worthless, but as the game goes on, it can be very powerful if you've been collecting cartographers. The cook is going to take 1 coin per character in their row, including the cook themselves. So you want to put them in a row with a bunch of other crew members.
Unique characters, yeah.
Yep. And then the parrot is going to allow you to draw and place a new tile. However, at the end of the game, he's going to cost you -1 coin. So he helps you race fast, but it's going to cost you at the end of the game as well. The gunner immediately gives you 5 coins, which is a lot of coins in this game. However, at the end of the game, if you have 3 or more gunners on your board, you're going to lose the game. It's impossible for you to win if you have 3 gunners visible. The carpenter is going to give you 3 points at the end of the game if they're not in the same row or column as a gunner. A gunner will destroy their work, and so they're going to negate the points of the carpenter. A swabby is going to be the set collection portion of the game. So if you have one, you're going to get 1, 4, 9, 16, or 25 coins if you have at least 1 swabby in each column. So if you have a swabby in 2 columns, you're going to get 4 coins at the end of the game. The lookout is going to give you 4 coins if there is no character above this tile in the column. So if he is at the top of a column, you're going to get 4 points. And the last one, which is a tricky one that adds a whole bunch of dynamic to this game and where I think a lot of the fun can come into it, is the monkey. The monkey is going to give you 1 coin, and then you're going to place it and then flip an adjacent tile.
Must, not may.
Yes.
You must flip an adjacent tile.
However, you get to apply the effects of the revealed character. So if you're remembering what you're putting down, or for example, you could have a situation where you have 3 gunners on the board. You can use that to flip the gunner back over, and hey, what do you know? Now I've flipped over a navigator, now that I actually have cartographers, and I can score points.
Yep.
So there is some depth in, and I use the term depth, but I don't want to imply that this is some sort of strategic heavy game. But the more you play this game, the more you'll know what all of the characters do, and you'll be able to manipulate them in certain ways to your advantage. And it becomes clear when you may want to or not want to flip those tiles over.
Yeah, and although you talked about it not being a strategical masterpiece, I think this is a tactical masterpiece, and I want to get into that a little bit. I also want to put this game in the context of our show and just, peel back the curtain a little bit, give our listeners and followers a behind-the-scenes look. This is a game that Doug was very early on, and Doug saw it and got to play it at a trade show. I, unfortunately, was working and parenting and was unable to attend that part of the trade show. But he was so enthusiastic that when one of us is really hot, like 10 out of 10 on the game, the other person will naturally start to poke holes in it. And, Doug was like, it does a lot of the same things as Quacks of Quedlinburg, but it plays in 20 minutes. I think I can play this with my youngest. I can play this with my oldest. I can play this with my wife. I could play this with family. Like, Doug was really hot on the game. So immediately I was skeptical. Then I played it. I was like, oh, I want to play all 4 maps today. Went home to Board Game Arena and did a deep dive into it. So, from the top, I just want to state that I've played this much more on Board Game Arena than in person. However, had I not played it in person, I would never review this game for the following reasons. Playing in person brings that yes and fun to life. When a tile is flipped over, whether you're playing with a 41-ish year old man or a 12-year-old kiddo, you see the joy and the agony of when that tile is flipped over, not just by the monkey ability, but on every turn you have a choice of, do I want this or do I want what's on the other side? And playing in person brings that to life in a way that I don't feel in Board Game Arena. I'm playing with people in France and Argentina, across the United States. I don't know who they are. I don't have that same vibe. And the other thing that it does, it allows me to see other people's ships in a way that's, I'm losing the word, but when I see it in person, it's different than when I see it on a screen. I can look across and see what is happening on your ship, and it's a little bit more thrilling and adventurous playing this game in person. I still get a lot of the same feelings on Board Game Arena, but when I'm playing in person, that race element is a little bit more present because I can see who's getting to the top of a column faster. I'll send it back to you.
Well, and I will point out that my glowing recommendation came before the Spiel des Jahres.
That's where I was going. I left that out. Yeah.
Yeah. Before the nominee was announced that this was going to be a nominee for that. But I think you hit on there that one of the skills in this game is the observation, is that, careful watching of what other people are doing to see, maybe I don't want to go after that column. Can I speed up that column and claim that first, or those type of things are in there. And it is a game that it's very simple, it plays fast, and by the end of one game you know what all of the characters do without needing the player aid. But there is a player aid in the box, so it's like, it's great for when you're learning, but after a game you're like, it's instinctual of like, I know what that does, I don't want that, and I hope it's this, and that type of a thing. To be able to pick up and start going is huge. And I will throw out...
I like that. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the caveat, and we've watched people review this, and obviously the Spiel folks thought it was a good game to put on their nominee list, but when you're talking about other gamers that are reviewing it, if you're not taking risks and pushing your luck and you just basically draw a tile and place it, this game will fall flat.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of that fact, that if you're not pushing and trying to accomplish something, or trying to get some of those combos that are in the game, you're just pulling tiles out of a bag and placing them.
And I want to come back to that because I want to go on a rant on something you said earlier.
Okay.
You mentioned that after the first game, you know what all 9 characters do, right? And what I love about Captain Flip is that the characters play differently on each of the 4 maps.
Sure. Yeah.
That parrot on the map where you get rewarded, where all of them are rewarded based on how fast you can get to the top, right? Drawing that, except for one, you're penalized. You get taken away if you're the first one to get to the top on the 2 spot. That parrot encourages you to race in a way that's much different than on any of the other 4 maps. I have had games where I've been sitting there, and I'm a racer, so I like to get out and race, but I have had games where I've been sitting there with 3 gunners out and just hoping that the game doesn't end. Don't end. I got to flip this. How am I going to flip it? What am I going to do? And I love that tension that this brings. And So, folks, I'll say this, all right? I've heard some critiques of this game, and I don't want to say that they're not valid. It's just I disagree with them if you're only playing this on Board Game Arena. Whereas the tabletop version, it brings a little bit different vibe, right? And I would never look in on somebody else's podcast. I wouldn't do that. The same way, like I'm a head basketball coach. I would never look in on somebody else's program. Like your program's your own, your show is your own. But I just think our experience with Captain Flip and playing it in person and playing it with Doug's children, haven't played it with my children yet, really brings credence as to why this was nominated for a Spiel.
Yeah.
And some of the other skills, boy, you're going to get group discussion. As soon as the game's done, people are going to talk about, oh, if I wouldn't have flipped that, or I should have flipped that. You get all those woulda, coulda, shoulda moments in a 20-minute game, a game you could play in an indoor recess, a game you could play in an after-school program, a game you could play in a library. So,
well, and there's certainly the decision making and that risk management of whether I should or shouldn't flip. But this is a game that I think does a really good job in teaching patience. Because
so
when
how
it
can
is
a 20-minute game teach patience?
Well, when it is not your turn, the other, each player kind of gets their turn on the soapbox when it's their turn to pick out the tile. And why it works is like you're not taking a turn, but you're invested in what they're doing. And you want them, even sometimes if it's like, oh, I hope he flips that and it is a gunner and now he's got 4 on the board and he's got real problems. Or there is a part of like sharing joy when the other person gets what they were looking for, and that idea that there's almost every one of those alternative options of you start the game and it's like, I want to go, maybe the first thing you draw is a swabby. It's like, maybe I'm going to try and do a full swabby thing. And then while you're going for that, shoot, I just flipped over a lookout, and there's no way he's going to be on the top of the thing.
Maybe you should have kept the swabby. A little bit of trash talking
or
banter.
Whatever. So all of that type of thing, I think, keeps people engaged.
Yeah.
But it moves fast, but there is downtime where it's not your turn, but you're paying attention on the other turns. And it's like it never feels like, oh, geez, I got to wait for 3 people to do their turn. You want to see people play the lottery the whole time. And so I think it really works well. The one other kind of caveat that I have, which is that my wife and daughter didn't think that much of this game when we played it. However, when I played it with my nephew and my dad and a friend of my nephew's, they loved it.
Interesting.
And I've been thinking about that for a while and what was the difference? What didn't work or things like that? And you could theoretically make the argument that gender was the deciding factor of it's a game about pirates and maybe, my nephew and those things, they got more engaged with the theme. But I think it really comes down to more with player buy-in and investment. And when I look back on the game that I played with my wife and my daughter, they weren't invested in the game. It was more, all right, I'll flip it over and put it down, and maybe I will or I won't. But they weren't engaged. And I feel like if you're going to not be engaged or you're not going to take the risk, push your luck, try and find different options, try and score the most points, this game will fall flat and just be kind of ho-hum.
So is there anything you could have done differently to increase the engagement at the table?
Well, that's a difficult question because I think it always comes down to things that you and I have talked about on the show a lot, which is there's so many variables.
Yeah.
It's like, was that just the wrong night to introduce that game? Did people really not want to play a game? Did I try and add another one on? And did my, was it too late at night and they were kind of tired and beat? So there could be a lot of those, but I did notice that there was kind of a, whatever type of attitude at the table in hindsight for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But then, playing with my dad, who's not a gamer, and my nephew, and they are hooting and hollering when my dad flips over another gunner and he's trying to figure out how to get himself out of a jam.
Did Walt lose? Did he experience that loss condition that I've had multiple times?
I don't think he did.
Okay.
But, and so then there's the excitement. It's like, I hope I get the parrot or whatever it is, or the monkey.
Yeah, I think to answer your question, this is a game where if I'm introducing it to people, I would not hesitate to sit back and be a game manager and just not play that first time, because it plays in just 20 minutes and how impactful the initial game can be as a hook on people. This isn't a 3-hour Darwin's Journey experience, right? This is a 20-minute game. That would be one that, as I introduce this into my house, I will probably try to learn from your experience and just sit that first one out and kind of moderate the game. I don't know, because, boy, my first initial experience with it was just, but I love a lot of games,
Yeah.
So,
just even pointing out, being on the side to then say after that first draw, like if you draw a navigator on your first turn, you want to flip it, but here's why you want to flip it.
Yeah.
And as the game goes on, it's like, here's some of your options. So I think if you can kind of guide some of the strategic choices in this game, or the tactical choices, it will make it more rewarding to kind of know what is at risk.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what the risks are, a push your luck game is not fun, right? You need to have those stakes in the game to warrant what's a success and what's not.
Yeah, you need to know what buttons you're pushing so it's not just a random mess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that, for your point of I understand why people would play this on Board Game Arena, which happens a lot when Spiel des Jahres games get announced, because sometimes they're not readily available in the U.S., or people want to get on like, all right, what games are people talking about? So sometimes that's the only option. However, that makes a big difference as far as some of those games of what the intangible in-person part of a game is that you can't see in Board Game Arena. And you and I have talked a lot, too, about different games where playing it on Board Game Arena, it's like, I love this. And then I put it on the table, and it's the opposite, where it's like, geez, there's a lot of bookkeeping that I didn't realize that the Board Game Arena was keeping track of that now feels cumbersome. And so that pendulum goes both ways, but this is one where it's like, it could seem pretty dry without that interaction and that table presence.
Well, and if you look at PlayPunk, which is the company that's published this is their first game that they've published. This company was started by Antoine Bauza, which is, Doug would love to give you a hug if he ever sees you, Antoine. So you have been warned. He loves your games. And Thomas Provost. And I'll just read a quick blurb. This is off of their Board Game Geek description. So they've written this, okay? For them, authors are the key creative players and will be supported and challenged so that each game reaches its full potential. Games from PlayPunk will be polished down to the smallest detail. Game design, narrative, ergonomics, graphics, production, writing, and then it gives a little ... ellipses. To achieve this goal, PlayPunk will take the time to mature its games and will have a limited catalog. So even from that description, if I'm looking at that, like, this is a game that is screaming, play me in person. Don't just play me on Board Game Arena. So I not to say that, hey, I did it right, but playing it in person the first time and then running home and exploring the other maps and seeing what the game has to offer, I just think that's the way to really get after Captain Flip. So
which we didn't really even I didn't mention very thoroughly, but there are
that's why I tied it in there for you, Doug.
4 different maps that you can place your crew on.
All play differently, man.
So there's like a basic pirate ship. There's a big kraken or octopus, an island, and the way that they're organized are all different. The bonuses at the top are different. So there's a lot of variety, and certainly a game I can see getting a lot of play in an after-school program and certainly a family game night, and the fact that it goes up to 5 players, you're not going to have people sitting out in this one.
Well, and what I love about it is certain people may prefer one map over the other. And because the game plays so fast, if the island map is my favorite, but the Kraken map is your favorite, we can play them both in a half hour because we already know how to play.
Yeah.
And that there's just a lot in that box.
Yeah. So a great game from Playpunk, and no surprise that was nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. That is Captain Flip. Check it out if you get the chance.
The School of Gaming. In the School of Gaming, we discuss concepts, keywords, etiquette, and helpful ideas in the world of gaming. This week, we're going to discuss scheduling a regular game night. Doug, take us into this segment.
Yeah, can't wait to see what the transcription does with that School of Gaming intro.
Hey man, that was a pause. All right, now you're calling me out on it, but I couldn't find my run sheet. I had way too many tabs up, so I was like, I got to stretch this thing out a little bit. I got it brought into last week's run sheet. I had to get that down. I had to bring it up. There we go.
Yeah, last week it gave me a lot of dots in a row. Like we don't know what this is.
You can always chop it down a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So we recently had a discussion on Discord about the trouble with getting folks to show up for game nights and creating a consistent game group. And there's more on that topic, and I thought it would be great to share with a wider audience. I know that in the past...
Well, it's something you have experience in, going over a decade now with multiple people.
Yeah, so, and it's something that I think a wider audience would appreciate. I know in the past we have talked about just hosting a game night, but this being along the lines of being more specific on scheduling and how to get people to show up and things like that. Michael mentioned I have had a consistent game night for the last decade, and in that time, the faces at the table have changed. People have come in, people have gone, but it has stayed intact that entire time. And I do feel like there are some pointers that I have learned in this process. And my two biggest points, and interrupt me whenever you feel necessary, Michael, but my two biggest tips are weeknights and consistency. Okay, so I have found that people, especially those with children, guard their weekends very carefully. And it is very hard to get folks to commit to a weekend night or a weekend game night more than a couple of days ahead of time, if that. And certainly nobody, I think it would be almost impossible unless it was very close family and friends to say, hey, we're going to do this every Saturday night or Friday night. It's very difficult to do. Parents, and I'm assuming we are a family game podcast. We talk to educators and homeschoolers and things like that. So I know a lot of you out there have children. So I'm pointing that out there as well. But parents seem to have an easier time getting free for a weeknight. It's also a pointer out there is it's going to be difficult to get two adults from the same house to a game night every week.
Yeah.
Because you've got kids going to bed, you've got
activities
practices and things after school. So you might be able to get one, and maybe if it's a couple that you game with, maybe they're alternating. But the idea that you could possibly get two parents every night on a week or every week on a weeknight is going to be difficult. As far as the consistency is concerned, I have been on a bunch of committees and found out through gaming and just marketing is that having one night for people to remember is, oh, Doug's game night is on Wednesday, is a lot easier for people to remember and kind of just block in as opposed to every other week or the first Wednesday of the month, because people just don't remember that. It's not consistent enough. even to the point if I scheduled something and it said Doug's game night is every week on Wednesday from this time to this time, even if nobody showed up or I didn't know that anybody was coming or I knew that nobody was coming, it's like that doesn't negate that it's going to be next Wednesday as well. And people are welcome to show up and do that. So I think picking a consistent night so people don't have to remember it is important. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't change that as time goes on. My consistent game night has been on Wednesdays. It's been on Thursdays. It's been on Tuesdays. Usually I avoid Mondays and Fridays because everybody's busy and just getting back after the weekend on Monday, and Friday, falls into that weekend thing. If you primarily game with couples and people in your groups tend to have families and kids, one idea is seeing if you can start something like on a Friday night with all of the kids coming to one place, and then you've got parents on deck to, or older kids rotating childcare and doing that type of stuff. And maybe you're making it more of a game night with a mini daycare type of thing to throw that out there. And if you've got, that would work potentially with gamer friends that all have kids and they're all juggling the same type of thing. As I've got kids to get to bed, I got to do this. So that's one option. But the other thing that I think goes into this is the final part that I really have is time. And that's where it comes in with parents as well, is you get to pick as the host or the person scheduling it what time you want to be. And if you want a game night that goes from 6 to 8 or 7 to 9, you can get 1 or 2 games in and everybody is home by a decent hour, and that can be important. If you're trying to get non-gamers or casual gamers to show up for a game night, telling them it starts at 6 and it's open-ended and sometimes we go to midnight can be scary. And people don't know how to cut out.
That's a problem for professionals too. If somebody has to be up at 5:15 a.m. and if there's that little bit of unknown, like if game night is ever jumping into my job performance, I can tell you very candidly, game night won't be something that I look forward to or even am able to go to on a consistent basis. And that has been the case for me. At one point in time, I was a part of Doug's game group, and I was also a principal, and I commuted an hour and 4 minutes to get to my building. And if I had a difficult conversation that was starting first thing in the morning, or if the weeks were running together, sorry guys, I can't make it tonight. So I think that consistency with start and end times is really key. The other thing that's key, though, that I think you've done a great job with is just the flexibility and setting those communication norms so that people know. I think in the past, especially in pre-COVID times, it was basically by midday people were communicating if they weren't able to make it. So that the rest of the group knows, okay, well, then we're not going to play this game that's best at 4 if I'm not there. And instead of just leaving that all up to Doug to inform the group of, it's just you and me tonight when you show up, you know? So I think the consistency, but also being flexible, really can lead to a great experience as well.
Well, and if you're trying to find non-gamers or casual gamers and bring them aboard and not even saying like, if you say show up when you can, like it's not, you need to sign, you need to be here every week. Just that idea of knowing that, we're not going to be playing if you come, we're not playing a 3-hour game and feeding you to the wolves. Like, depending on who's showing up, and that's part of being the host too, is, okay, who do we have here? Yeah, maybe if it was going to be the 3 of us, we're going to play kind of this heavy game because we know we all have the time, but we have a newcomer here. So we're going to put that on the back burner to another week, even though we're all really excited about it. And maybe we're going to play some games that we haven't played for a while, or games that are easier, or things like that, to just make it so it's not overwhelming for new people. And when you have that consistency, it does make it easier when you see those casual folks to be like, hey, we got game night this week if you're interested. And you can just throw it out there all the time because it's like, hey, every Wednesday, anytime. And
anytime after 6:30. And then if the norm is we're not going to, sorry, cut you off there, but the last rules teach would be at 9:30. In the past, that's somewhat been like, hey, 6:30, first game's going to drop, but if you don't get there till 7:30, know that you're probably coming just in time for another game. And if you show up at 9, you might not get a whole lot of gaming in, because the very latest that we'll start a rules teach is going to be 9:30. So having those norms established allow the other participants to know and to be respectful as they come into somebody else's home.
And if you're dealing with men, gaming men, the idea that you are going to get them to put something on their schedule is almost impossible.
I disagree with that.
I don't. For like 3 weeks out, very difficult. I mean, I think if you are communicating, like, I think they will commit several days in advance. But like you and I know, even trying to find, a game day or something like that, we can say, oh, is everybody available this weekend 2 months from now? And it's like, no idea,
Yeah, and I think to just frame the particulars too, because some of this has to do with where we live. And although we're in a small community, we're south of Madison, Wisconsin, there is a gaming hotbed in Madison, Wisconsin. There are designers, there are publishers, there are tons of game shops, but we're not in a city. So the issue, we don't run into the problem of having 6 people show up at your game night. That's not a situation that we would typically run into. So just keep that in mind too with the conversation, because I know for some folks it can go the other way of, what if I have too many people show up? That's not something that you've ever had to worry about, is it? Or is
no,
it?
And I think that goes into the realm of consistency, where it's, for me anyway, where it's like I've got the people that get invited or are coming over, and there's a level of consistency of who's showing up, and maybe one time people will drop out, but it's not open to the public where I keep adding and where I'm asking 20 people and hope that 5 show up. It's okay, now this one moved away, and so we've got some more room at the table. Yeah. And so now but that consistency helps it, because you could see who's coming on a regular basis and who you're throwing that invite out. So I think consistency is a big component to this, whether it's time and days of the week and who you're inviting, and just getting something that becomes part of people's schedule, as opposed to, hey, this is a cool thing that we did one time.
Yeah. And then the only other thing that I want to add in is you only need one other person to have a game night.
Yeah.
If you have one other person and you can consistently get that one other person, and it might sound strange. I mean, especially if a relationship dynamics and those things, and but if you just have one other person who's consistently showing up, you can still get a lot of games played. You can play some games that you want to play, and then you're just one other person away from having a full-fledged game group and game night. So, we often talk about giving people permission. I think some of it is communicate with the people that are in your life that you want to have a game night, commit to the game night, find one other person, and now you have a game night.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. So I'd love to hear what other people, if you after hearing this episode and you want to go onto Discord and let us know if you've got any other ideas or hints or pointers and things like that, would be great. So let us know what you think about, what goes into scheduling a game night that isn't just picking out games and, what you're going to have at the snack table, things like that. So we'd love to hear from you guys. What, Buffalo Wild Wings? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, man, that's exactly what I was talking back in like episode 30 or something. Doug went wild when I talked about bringing some fried chicken to game night. He's like, can't do that.
Make my cards translucent with all that
I
grease.
just made some good smoked fried chicken, and Doug almost threw me out of the studio.
Don't you dare bring that into my museum of games.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the high five. if you're anything like us, you're constantly on the hunt for new games to try out. This week, Michael and I are going to be doing something very unique in which we are trying to predict what the top 5 games are that the other person wants to bring home from GenCon. So we're going to be talking about a random slew of games. Hopefully there's crossover. And quite frankly, Michael, I have very little faith in my list.
Oh, come on.
I had such a hard time.
Well, I'll tell you what. I know all of your games.
I bet you do.
I've got 8 of them here on the list.
I got 47 in honorable mentions to hope I cover some of them.
Well, and how do we cover Gen Con before we go, right? Because that's what we're trying to do in this high five. We don't want to get too braggadocious and be like, hey, we get to go cover Gen Con and have an awesome time. But at the same time, there's some cool games out there that we want to talk about. And go ahead.
I got thrown off with Michael because he said that they were all games that he hadn't played, and he was keeping them in the Game Schooler branding. So there was a couple of games that I'm like, I think he's really interested in that one, but it falls more into his personal list.
Yeah, you get into that 10 through 21 on my list, and they're games that you and I may never play, and I might only play solo and at conventions, but I'm still really excited about them. So I tried to keep my top.
If I get 2, I will be elated.
All right. Well, let me do a control, copy, and paste to bring my 5 over. I have your 5 all ready to go.
All right.
What do you got? I have my 5. So number 5 for you is Rock Hard 1977 from DeVere Games and Jackie Fox. This is a game that you've been talking about a little bit online, but certainly offline, and I know you are excited to play.
That is correct. It is on my list at number 3.
3. Okay. Oh, so we're doing it like that. We're going to see.
I'm just telling you where it's at.
All right. Good.
You got one. This one, I had such a hard time putting
You're
them in order.
You're struggling with this.
I am. I'm nervous. I'm sweating.
Stop, man.
I'm going to sweat
Let's
through
go.
my shirt.
This isn't episode 1. Bring it.
All right. My number 5 for Michael is Flash 10, 2013 from DeVere and Wolfgang Kramer. No dice from Michael. He's talked about it to me off the air.
Yeah, I have. I'm just seeing where it is on the list. It is on the list, but it's down there at 28.
All right. There's no expansions on your list.
I didn't say that. If you notice,
I asked in the text earlier,
and I intentionally ignored it. There is
then
one.
I will put my number 5 is Forest Shuffle Alpine.
No, that is actually down. It is on the list. It's in the 20s, though. I'd have to go 26.
Okay, so I'm doing your. I thought the list was 26 through 20. Am I? My mistake. Let me get the good list out.
Hey, if you want a hint, the expansion is behind me. The game is behind me, if you can see. But anyways, I'll get back into your list. Number 4 for Doug is Middle Ages by Marc Andre, same designer of Splendor. No, it's not on your list.
Short list, yes. It's on my short list, but not on my top 5.
Oh, okay. But should we talk about these games a little bit of what they are? Or are we just going to make this the shortest high five ever?
I think we can make it the shortest high five. Hopefully we'll talk about them more in detail on next week's semi-hype episode. I guess my caveat is if you hear a game, go on Board Game Geek and look it up and talk about it. Middle Ages is a game that is a reprinting of a different game that's kind of been spruced up a little bit, correct?
Yeah.
The hard part is we haven't played any of these games, so we don't have a good shorthand description for some of them.
Right, and the other hard part, a lot of it is hype, right? So some of the games absolutely excited about, and they might be the only time we ever talk about them. That's just not what we do on the show. But it re-implements Majesty, the Realm. This is being published by Studio H, so our friends over at Hachette and Marc Andre and Hachette just seem to do some really good stuff. So it's one that we're both definitely excited about. I thought it would have made your high five, but I failed there.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, here comes more failing. Do you have a game from Oink Games on your list?
I do not.
Ah, gosh.
Not in the top 28.
Oh, no, sorry.
That's
I
all
had
right.
Moving Wild.
Yeah,
From Oink Games. That was about it had drafting and developing a national park, zoo type thing. So I thought that would hit some of Michael's buttons, and he's been. Last year he ran to the Oink Boots game every day, so I assumed he'd have another one on there.
I did, and their allocations were all gone. So I picked some up in trade, and I got the Oink games that I want now, so I don't have to.
Man.
Except yeah, okay. Moving right on. Number 3 for Doug is Expeditions Around the World 2nd Edition.
Also on my short list.
It's not in your high five?
No.
Oh. All right, and that's a game. Is it Kiesling?
One of it, yeah.
Yeah, or is it Kramer?
Might be both.
No, it's just one of them. It's a solo deal.
I got it. You keep talking.
Well, it's. What am I going to talk about? I already sent it over to you. You're back to me, man.
All right. Well, my next one is.
It's
do you have
Kramer.
a Dr. Reiner Knizia game on your list?
In the top 5?
Yes. No.
I do not.
Oh, Circus Flocati, I thought would be. Or do you already have one of that?
I might make my way over to 25th Century and see what we could do to work a little Circus Flocati back home, but it's not in the top 5.
So
I do. It falls in that realm of I want to see it before I bring it back. There's so many different versions of Circus Flocati. I need to make sure that the colors work, and it's not one that I currently have on my Reiner shelf. So
From
might come home.
1998.
Yep.
So you can't blame me. I have reasons for why I picked what they are.
You really did. You did a nice job. Number 2 for me, I know Doug is going to find his way over to the Spin Masters booth and get Comic Hunters.
Yes.
Which Arcane Wonders is putting out, but there's some weird licensing things, so it's over at the Spin Masters booth. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Yeah, the Marvel license to print that game in the original form goes through Spin Master to get that license, but the Arcane Wonders has worked with the Brazilian company that is responsible for the game design. So that's why it will be at the Spin Master booth, even though it is a joint production between both of them.
And I believe Robert from Arcane Wonders has been talking to you about this since 2022. And that's not an exaggeration. Like you've known about it. This has been on the horizon for a while, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
And that was my number 1, actually.
All right. So I got 2 on your list.
Yeah, so you'll get 3. All right, my number 2 is from Blue Orange Games, Link City 2024.
No, I think you got way too deep on this. When I go through and rank 1 through 5, they're going to be so on the nose. You're going to be like, oh, gosh. Then you're going to tell me they're not on the brand and I'm fired from the podcast.
I overthought it. Link City is a kind of a party-style game where you're predicting where the other person thinks that the new buildings should go in the city. And in fact, that was my number 5 as well.
Interesting. So that's where you thought we'd have crossover. Good. Your number 1 that I thought you would have, but is clearly in your number 2 or 3 spot, is Foundations of Metropolis.
Correct. That is my number
Wonders.
2.
Yeah. So Foundations of Metropolis is a re-implementation of Foundations of Rome. Emerson Matsuuchi and Arcane Wonders have an awesome game and a hit on their hands, and we know that because we've played Foundations of Rome, and it is an awesome game and a hit. It's just $300. So Foundations of Metropolis is going to bring that down to a target price of $40 to $50-ish, and going to be a great little game there.
All right. So,
and what's my number 1?
I'm Ron Burgundy. Is Undergrove? No, golly.
No.
AEG, and that is Elizabeth Hargrave. I was struggling. I wonder if my honorable mentions are all yours.
Go ahead.
I got
what else are we excited about? Let's talk about some games.
For you, Gentle Rain.
Us.
I put down that. Was that in your top 5?
Nope.
I Heart Manatees.
Nope.
Happy Home.
Nope.
Arcs I put on your honorable mentions because I know you're excited about it, but it didn't fit into your brand.
Absolutely can't wait for Arcs, but I got a friend who's pre-ordered it for me. I've got an inside line on that one, so I'm just waiting for the retail release so that I can find its way into my home.
And then Middle Ages.
Middle Ages is not in my top 5. I'll go through my top 5 now, and then I can't wait to hear yours. Number 5 for me is Wrath of Fire Mountain, Eric Lang and Phil Walker Harding. It's a game game that I cannot wait to play. I'm curious to see if it comes in a tin or not. I haven't gotten the forums to find it. Yes. But that will be one that when I get home with my slew of games, my 8-year-old and I will play because she's a big Phil Walker Harding fan. And so Wrath of Fire Mountain is number 5. Number 4 is my one expansion game. That's Honey Buzz Fall Flavors. They have the deluxe edition over at GenCon. It's actually better price than if you got it on Kickstarter. So not trying to get any gamer rage going out there, but that's one that I do plan on picking up at the booth so it can match the game behind me. It brings a lot of different modules and actually brings in a new different item into the marketplace. So selfishly, it's one I'm looking forward to playing solo, and one that I think you and I and some of our friends will enjoy playing as well. Sure. Number 3 for me, should I just keep rolling here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Number 3 is Mistwind from Friendly Fish. To say that it fits our brand is a little bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I discounted that immediately for that.
But hey, a 2.8. It has some First in Flight vibes with the theme. Although you're transporting things in whales, you're still flying around a board. But that's one that I'm excited to actually see. I don't know if it will work. I need to actually see it before I try to procure it. Number 2, I thought you would have known number 1 and 2. I've been kind of quiet about them, but I'm really excited about number 2 and number 1. Number 2 is Video Game Champion. Arcane Wonders has brought that over. I actually talked to you about it the other day, but there's an action selection in there that just absolutely has me intrigued, where you're trying to rent video games and you have no money. So if anything explains my childhood, my parents owned a store where we rented video games. And so I can remember when Super Mario 2 came out and my dad's like, I got 2 copies, but I sold 1 copy to your buddy Jacob and his dad, so we're only going to have 1 copy at the store. And I was secretly so happy for Jacob and also really mad because I wasn't going to get my copy of Super Mario Brothers 2. But anyway, I digress and went on a long rant there. But Video Game Champion, special spot of nostalgia. I know I'll be coming home with a copy of that if they don't run out of their allotment, because Arcane Wonders will sometimes bring in like 500 copies of a game and it's gone before we even get there.
I would have put that on your list. It is there. I just scrolled right by it.
No, easy to do when there's 600 games on the preview.
Yeah, that's on me. I should have known that one.
No. So that one, if it's there when we get there Thursday, I'll politely ask for a
Was
review
that one that
copy,
that was not for sale for a while? On the Board Game Geek Gen Con preview list? Because it says release date October, and I wonder if they didn't know if they would have it or not. So I feel like that's why I skipped over it at one point.
Correct. Okay. Yes. And then number 1 for me, I'll say Direwolf. And do you know what the game is?
The
Invincible. It's a hero.
Oh, I didn't know you were interested in that at all.
Yeah, I really am. I love what Direwolf puts out, and I'm very very curious about that one, and especially I think number 1 and number 2 could both be games of the week. But this is 3,500 games are released every year, so maybe all 5 of these are games of the week. Maybe none of them are. What do you have on your list?
Michael's so elusive. I can't even pin him down. It's like an enigma.
What do you mean?
I never would have picked Invincible for you. Had no idea that was on your radar.
Are you excited about that one?
Not particularly, because I don't know much about the IP.
The IP, yeah.
So if I don't, is that a family-friendly IP?
Not the friendliest, but okay. That's why I need to see the game. Some of these, I would say it's more of a PG-13. I mean, it's not The Boys, but it's an animated show that's on Amazon Prime.
All right, my number 5 was Link City, and that was kind of a new addition. And then Little Alchemists, which I was surprised.
Yeah.
Michael didn't mention that one. You got Rock Hard 1977, Foundations of Metropolis, and Comic Hunters.
Yeah.
Were my list. So I don't know what that says about us. I feel like I'm failing in our marriage.
No. But
know.
in
I need
the
to
podcast,
know what to give you.
Now, where did In the Footsteps of Marie Curie land for you? Was it honorable mention, or did it not make your list?
It'd be on my game. I didn't do past 5.
No. In the Footsteps of Marie Curie, not Darwin. The follow-up.
No, I know. I said I did. Yeah, I didn't make a list past my 5.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. So
I had that on your honorable mention.
Yeah,
I had Gnome
I'm
Hollow.
Definitely interested in that.
And then here's a game. Are you familiar with Star Tycoon? Did you see that one?
No, I didn't.
Check that one out, from the same designer and publishing team that did Funfair and Unfair. Just take a look, and we'll have 6 hours of card time, so we can talk about some of these. But
yeah,
there are some games that I
did
just
see this. The on the table doesn't draw me to it.
Yeah,
that doesn't necessarily mean I won't enjoy it, but I did look at this, and just seeing the pictures of the images on the table, I'm like, and
that's
game.
what I do love about being able. I mean, we'll get to jump into that media room and really see some of these. We got some tickets for the Hot Games room to get in and really see some of these. We're going to be at Lucas Oil Stadium. We've got a whole slew of meetings, which I think it's kind of funny when my colleagues in my day job are like, "Oh, you're going on vacation." I'm like, yeah, a day and a half or so of it'll be vacation, but we're working. And then everyone chuckles and laughs like, "Oh, you're working at a board game convention." And like, guys, we've got like 14 meetings lined up. All right, we're working. We're going to meetings. We're covering the event. We're hearing a lot of pitches. So it's fun. It is a lot of fun, and I think you can tell I'm really excited to get to cover it again.
Well, and keep an eye on our X account this weekend.
It'll be popping, Doug.
Hopefully try and get more out than we did last year. Last year was kind of getting our feet wet and getting our bearings, but I think this year we've got a lot more kind of structured and trying to be a little bit more conscious and not in awe of the entire spectacle. We certainly don't like to be a podcast that's always cramming GenCon down your throat and saying, aren't we lucky that we get to go? And we don't want to do that constantly. And
difficult
make
balance of being an enthusiastic podcaster and being a hype machine. You know what I mean? We definitely...
So hopefully we'll have enough time to kind of stop and smell the roses and pass some of the cool things that we're seeing on to you guys, and that would all be in our X account there. Again, a reminder to join the Discord, gameschooler.com/Discord, and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already, so you can find out when every new episode drops, which is Friday at 10:30 Central Standard Time. Next week, we are going to be having our second semi-annual hype show, and we are going to be talking all about our experience at GenCon 2024, the cool things we've seen, the experience, the blow-by-blow, the crazy things that we ate, all of the fun parts of...
Don't give away the restaurant, Doug.
I would. Yeah, okay, it'll be swamped if we did that.
Yeah, don't do that.
So we will follow up then with, like I said, semi-annual hype show, which is the only 2 times a year that we decide to geek out and fanboy and talk about all the things that we're excited about in gaming. Thank you so much for spending the last hour or so with us. We truly appreciate it.
Now get out there and keep gaming.